Welcome to Learning MoGraph for Fusion. This is going to be a quick overview to help you get going doing MoGraph in Fusion. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to another Fusion tutorial. We are going to be looking at mimicking a popular tutorial from the awesome Andrew Kramer. They've got this digital sign pixel screen and it's really cool, and I wanted to see, can we do something like that in Fusion? So I've spent quite a bit of time figuring it out, and I think I've got something that is cool in its own way but yet similar, and hopefully you agree. So let's get right into it. All right, here is our node tree, what we're going to be looking at. Now for this tutorial, I'm just going to kind of go over all the nodes that I've created to get this effect, and we might create some nodes to kind of get an understanding of the tools. So let's jump at the beginning. Let's start with our, how do we create this pixel look, this little dot look? So let's go all the way over here to the beginning nodes. So what we've done is we're using the paint node, and I've never really jumped into the paint node here in Fusion, so this was kind of this was a big trial and error for me. But after quite a few nights of banging my head, I think I've kind of gotten something. Let's jump into it. We've got our paint node. We've created a background layer here that's 1000 pixels wide by 21 high. We made a polyline, which is just basically like a mask line in After Effects. So let's real quick create that. Get a paint node. We're going to take our background. You have to have a background node connected to your paint node if you want to see something. It's what drives and tells Fusion what resolution you want to be at. Since Fusion is resolution independent, you really don't have a set composition resolution. And like in After Effects, you set your composition to a certain resolution, and that's the resolution. You can have any resolution inside that composition, but that's the output resolution that it's going to output. In Fusion, it's different. Every node can be its own resolution. So you could start off with a 720p timeline, so to say, and you're ending up with a 4K resolution output. So it's really interesting, and it's a little bit different way to work, but it's pretty cool. We've got our paint node. Let's load our paint node. We're going to come over here to our tools, and we're going to use the polyline tool, and we're just going to click in here, and I'm going to hold the shift key down, click over here. So now we've got this one complete line, which, well, we don't want a one complete line. Let's go to our modifiers, open this up, brush controls, set this to a solid circle, and let's go to our stroke controls. Let's increase the spacing to about 0.9, and let's take the size down a bit. I don't remember what we had in the original one. Let's see what we have here. So it's a little bit smaller. Our size is about 0.014. Oh. It's about 0.0105. Just do that real quick. So we've got our paint polyline here with our little dots. Now we need to transform this into a wall of pixels, so to say. So what we need to do is we need to take our dots. We're going to merge it with a new background, which is basically a square. So we have 1000 wide by 1080 tall, and we're at float 16. So we're going to merge that together, and we're going to take our positioning of our merge. Let's go to tools, and we're going to put it down at the bottom so that our dots are just right at the bottom. Now let's get a duplicate node. And for this one, I'm just going to go ahead and create a new one. So let's get a duplicate node, and let's pipe this guy. And that's kind of the cool thing too, is you notice as we're overviewing what I've done here, you can just take the same original nodes and pipe them into completely different ones. So you can always reuse and multi-use, repurpose use your nodes. They never go to waste. That's kind of a cool thing in Fusion. So we're going to take our duplicate node, and we're going to increase the copies to about 52. So nothing has happened, but what we need to do is we need to tell it where to go. This is our little control for our positioning tool. Now, as you can see, as I drag this around, it just creates all of these different cool effects, but it's telling the node where to put all those different copies. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to hold down the command key and just go on the y-axis and just bring them up. As you can see here, I'm starting to bring all these rows up, and let's zoom in here to the top. Yep, they're not cropped. Great, so now we've got our wall of dots, but it's only a half wall. It's only half of our 1920 1080. So let's create a new background. It's at 1920 by 1080, and we're going to merge it with our dots that we duplicated. Now we've got half. So we've taken the dots and we put it on top of our merge. This background is our background. Now what we're going to do to complete the other side is we're going to add another duplicate tool, and that's going to mirror, and now we have a complete wall of our pixels. So real quick, let's go to our text tool, and we've got our text. Nothing too fancy here. As you can see, we have also animated this to come on. So you can do a real quick write-on effect by animating the output of the write-on. So there it is at 0, and 20 frames animated to 1. So the warning just writes right on. And we've done the same thing with the little sub headline. We'll get into this part. Well, let's actually look at it real quick. So we got a warning. What we've done is we've taken this color correction, and as you can see, the R is kind of fading in and out. The I is kind of fading too. I put a mask over the R and I put a mask over the I and affected the level. So there's a full effect on the R and just about half the power effect on the I. And I've gone to this color correction and I've animated the gain with a perturb, which is pretty much very similar to like a wiggle in After Effects. It's exactly like a wiggle in After Effects. So I've wiggled the gain on just the R and the I to kind of give it like it's just kind of fading in and out. We're going to merge that with our battery. Now we're going to pipe that right into a blur node. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this text and we're going to put a blur on it. Now I've already got the blur right here, so I'm going to first take off my effects mask. So when we put on a blur, and we've got just a normal little blur here at about 11, it blurs everything. Well, we don't want to blur everything, but if we come back to our wall of dots that we have here, let's open up two screens. Remember, we've got this wall of dots, our pixels. We're going to use this wall of dots, our pixels, as a mat for our blur. So I'm going to take the output of this and drop it into the mask. And what we've done is we've inverted the mask, clipped our blacks, clipped our whites, and it's kind of giving us this interesting, cool, pixely type of effect. We're going to also real quick put a row dilate on it just to kind of bring it back a little bit. Just got a negative, real small effect, 0.00066, just real small, just to kind of bring it into taste. So that's all good and great. So now comes the fun part. Now we need to step into our 3D world. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the output of our row dilate, which is really the combination of our text and our blur with its mat of the pixel dot. So this is kind of making up the bulk of our effect. All right, so now it's time to step into our 3D environment. Real quick, we've got our projector set up to where we are projecting through a camera, basically, and that is going onto an image plane. And as we can see here, this image plane is being fed our dots, which is right over here. So remember, we created this dot. I'm just going to put a little knuckle over here. So we've got our image plane. It's got our dots. And now this is in 3D. And we've also have a wireframe as well to kind of help just give that screen some life. So let's go ahead and create that real quick. So we need our image to go into our projector. Let's go ahead and create an image plane. And let's copy that and paste it as well. So let's build this. This is our dots. I'm gonna pipe that into our image plane here. Let's take a look at our merge. Let's go to our image plane and let's put this at around 200. Let's turn on the wireframe. So we're gonna make this a wireframe, and our material, we're gonna make it white. All right, good. For our projector, we're just gonna go ahead and make it red. And this is just a taste. Whatever kind of red you wanna do is totally fine. All right, so for our image plane, we're gonna go ahead and just put in a Z offset. It's gonna paste in this basically about -1.133 and change. And we're gonna do the same for our other image plane, which is our wireframe. So you can see right away, now we are projecting onto our images. Let's just get right in here. So this is what's happening here. This is the effect that we have. Real quick, let's go ahead and name this. Dots wall and wireframe. All right, so now we kind of have this in a cool 3D environment. Kind of have this cool looking screen. Again, you can play with this wireframe to taste. Come in here to the controls and adjust the subdivision level and just tweak to your heart's content. But this is the basic layout. Now we need a camera. Now I have a camera animated already, and we're gonna go ahead and see what we have here. So I've animated this camera in an arc, as you can see here by the keyframes. Kind of moves in an arc. And so from 0 to 38, we've got this little cool movement. And on this camera, let's see, what do we have here? Yeah, we just have we got some Z and Y rotation happening as well. Let's take a quick view through the camera and we can see what it looks like. So remember, our text is being animated on, and we're just kind of moving around. So just to recap, you need a image projector. So you can project, basically it's just a camera, and you can project it through the camera onto a surface, which we've created, which is our dots wall. So remember our 1920 by 1080 dots wall we created. We're using that to feed an image plane. And then we're throwing on top, basically the same image plane, we're throwing on top a wireframe, and we merge it all together in a 3D merge, and we've brought in a secondary camera and animated it to our liking. Now what I've done up here is went and wanted to create some sort of screen grime, if you will, but I wanted to have the same camera movement. So I created another, basically the same thing, but with different textures. I don't know if you can see that right there. So I created this other image plane with different textures. Here's some smudges that I found, and then another background that, if you can see here, has this little highlight that was created with a polyline, 2 polylines. Just created my own little screen highlight. Fed those into an image plane. Fed that image into an image plane, merged them together, and now I just piped the same camera that I was using originally with all its animation, piped it right into this 3D merge, and now it has the same properties, the same animation from the other 3D environment. And what we're doing is we're going to composite this in 2D later. That way this gives us the most control. Instead of doing it all in 3D, now we have full control of how translucent or, you know, how dirty we want it to appear. We can also change the color. There's lots of different things we can do with it later. So that's what we're doing. We've basically gone to a text render, back to our original screen here. We piped it out to a renderer, and we just put on some depth of field effects. Let's go ahead and look at that. So now we've added some depth of field effects just so it looks kind of cool. So let's do that real quick. Let's just add a render 3D. We're going to take our merge out of here. Let's see what that looks like. All right, we have a white image that looks really, really good. So we made a render. What do we need to do? First of all, let's go to OpenGL renderer, right? We're going to enable lighting, enable shadows. So now we have our image that looks much, much better. We're going to go to accumulation effects. We're going to enable accumulation effects, and it kind of comes out. I really wish that they would do a little bit better job in designing or building. It works, but you definitely have to tweak these effects to get something that looks decent. So we're just going to throw this at around 20, and we're going to kind of give this here 0.0765. In order for this to also work in conjunction, you have to make sure that your camera has its plane of focus set up properly. And let me make sure that that's turned on. Plane of focus, boom, turned on right there. So you can see where my plane of focus is, that's crossing right through the A and the R. So you can see how my plane of focus is working. That's where my focus is at. So you have to set that up. Come over here to your camera, turn that on, and you can adjust the plane of focus where you want the plane of focus to be right in here. So there we go. We've set up our own little renderer, which is right here. I went ahead and renamed it. And we did the same for the dirt render. Pretty much just copied and pasted this just so we can create the dirt layer that's going to go over this. And there it is with the little light animated. So kind of gives it that little screen effect look. Okay, so we've got our text. We're rocking. Now let's get deeper with some 2D effects. Right away, we added a brightness just to kind of bring up the brightness and contrast. And I wanted to change the color of the battery just to kind of help give it some separation. So, you know, just going into a color correction node and adjusting some of basically the hue. Now, obviously, if you were to adjust everything, it would affect everything. So we need to use a mask or a polyline just to tell it where to go. In that case, I used a square or a rectangle polymask. And in this case, I got away with I don't have to animate it. But now in 2D, I'm just changing the color and making this look a little more interesting, a little bit better. So we've added a glow on top. So that's what that glow has done. And nothing too crazy, we cranked down the glow size, brought down the glow a little bit, increased the red scale, so we have a little red glow, increased the green slightly and the blue slightly. Nothing fancy. Added a secondary glow, and on this glow, we undid, if you can see here from the original glow, that the glow size is based on both the X and the Y happening simultaneously. But with this glow, we unchecked it. Now we can control the glow size independently on the X or Y axis. So we cranked up the X, brought up the Y a little bit, and now we kind of have this cool streaking thing going on. Nothing to the color scale. There's a lot of cool things that you can do with the glow. There's a lot of cool threshold, merge under, different apply modes that really help change the texturizing of the glow and how it affects the image. So really play with that and just kind of explore and see what different options are out there. Once we did that, of course, we want to displace it. So let's go to our displace node. And what are we doing here? What's happening here? It's a little bit of displacement happening. What we needed to do was, since we're kind of having our image here, our grunge layer, screen grunge layer, I also wanted to displace the image slightly. So I use that as a map for my displacement. And it just gives it a little bit of warping. Just a slight warping. So you can see I added some light power to radial displacement. It's going by luminance. Since this is pretty much already a black and white image, we're going to just go by luminance and, adjust the taste. You can go crazy adjusting all this stuff, but it just gives it a slight little warping, if you can see right in here, just enough so it's not so perfect. And that's what we want. Something that's not so perfect. All right, so now it's time to merge our cool looking graphic layer with our dirt layer. So that's what we've done. We've put those two on top, and now you can see what that effect is looking like. We've got some cool dirt and grime, and we've just taken our subtractive and additive slider and brought it down a little bit. You can see what that does. That's pretty much it. Again, you can come in here and add a bunch of different filters in between, you know, on top of the dirt layer. You can add some curves and really make this even more grungy, or there's so many different things you can do. What else do we do? Okay, so we came over here and we added a brightness, we added a filter, and we merged that together. Basically just doing like an edge sharpening, just to kind of give it a little pop. And then I went ahead and created a lens flare and added that lens flare right on top. I'm not going to get into the lens flare making. There you go. Hope this helps. Hope this showed you some cool stuff. And let's get to it, man. Well, there it is. Thanks for watching. Hopefully we learned something. Take what you learned and make it better.